Go. Mary Jane's family, the Bradleys, they came to this part of Arkansas when it was a territory. She was born in 1809, December. Her father died shortly afterwards. 3 years later, her mother remarried, and she remarried someone that was still connected to the family. A family friend, a cousin of a cousin. It was a lot of connections. And they moved when, and I'm not sure how old Mary Jane was. She was either 6, 7, or 9. I got different articles tell me different ages. She was young, 3 younger siblings, and now they're living in Greene, Tennessee, and they moved to this part of Arkansas, which was a territory. There was nothing here, nothing. They moved by flatboat. They got on a flatboat, came down Mississippi River until they could connect with streams and rivers to get over to the Red River, which is yonder. Red River's right down there. We're not far from it. I don't know what kind of homes they built when they got here, but my first thought was, you have 4 children on a flatboat, no railings, no nothing. This is just a big barge, and you're floating down the Mississippi for days upon end. I can't really fathom that. Anybody that has children know that had to be difficult. And when they got here and settled, there was literally no inhabitants. There was no white people. There was no early pioneers. They were it. There was a few Indians, Native Americans, that lived closer towards Texarkana, which Texarkana's not far down the road from us. And that was all. I mean, this was virgin territory. That was it. Now, that was approximately, well, it had to be before 1818. She'd been 1818, she would have been 9 years old. So remember, she was either 6, 7, or 9. 1818. Her husband did not appear here until, let me see what year he came, 1823, I think. Yes, he arrived in Arkansas to make land surveys. This particular report, and they all may be a year or two off, in 1820, he was appointed by the president to come out and make land surveys of this territory. He settled and he made land surveys in quite a large portion of this area, but he settled here in what became Lafayette County, and he began to acquire what would eventually become a very large cotton plantation. 1823. In 1825, President John Quincy Adams chose him to survey the state's western boundary between the Red River and the Arkansas River, which is quite the distance. 1831, President Andrew Jackson appointed him commissioner of the Arkansas Territory to identify and survey the state's southern boundary. 1832, he was appointed to the newly created office of Surveyor General for the Arkansas Territory. 1836, he was elected the first governor of Arkansas, serving a 4-year term. Then he returned to his home at Walnut Hill. The plantation he first built when he first arrived and decided this is where he wanted to settle, he built what was called, the last name's Conway, so he built what was called Port Conway. So down there on the Red River somewhere would be where he had a port where boats could stop and get food and whatever. And so he built the port, had several things going there, that business type things, and he built a home. Well, when he came back later, they decided that they wanted a home that was further away from the river and more in a higher elevation. So they built Walnut Hill plantation and grew cotton. The first grave here in the plantation cemetery that was first person was their little girl. I believe it was their oldest one. They had 10 children. Only 5 lived to be adults. And there's graves here. If we walk around, we should find the 5 graves. The oldest little girl died. She was terribly sick, and he wanted her buried where she was at home on their plantation. That's what everybody did, and in higher ground. So he chose this area for the cemetery. And I think in less than 48 hours, I think it was like 2 days later, but less than 48 hours, their son, their second child, died. Apparently they had some kind of fever or something that was contagious, is what I would think. And he is also buried here, and then there's 3 other ones that's buried here. And the rest of the graves, they're all either the Conway family or the Bradley family. Now, the Bradley family did not stay in this area, although I read one report that says her mother and stepfather are buried here. I'm going to go through the cemeteries and see if the tombstones, see if I find one that's their tombstone. Her mother was Mary Barton, not Bradley, but Barton, and Mary Bradley. And her father was a revolutionary patriot. His 2 grandfathers was. Mary Jane's one grandfather. Her mother's family was very wealthy. They had a huge, huge plantation in Greene County, Tennessee. And relatives one of their relatives became the first governor of Tennessee. If you look through and just keep reading,